Okay, in this video, I'm going to explain to you three types of problems that you're going to be using in the next couple lessons. Now, when I assign these lessons, you guys can do these. I'm going to have it by day, but you can do these, however you want. Just do them in order, but you can do them all in a day or two or whatever at your own pace whenever you can. That doesn't matter. The first problem we're going to look at is subtracting mixed numbers, which is a mix of whole and parts of a whole. So we have 4.5 minus 1 1/3. There's two ways you can do this. You can change both fractions to improper fractions and do it that way. Or you can subtract your whole numbers and change your fractions and regroup or rename. So the first one we're going to do, you will not have to regroup. You can just change to improper fractions or subtract whole numbers and fractions that way. So first let's change to improper fractions. Remember, we go in a circle and we multiply our denominator by our whole number and then add our numerator. So 2 times 4 is 8, plus 1 is 9, so 4 1/2 is 9 halves, minus 1 1/3, 3 times 1 is 3, plus 1 is 4 4/3. Now we find a common denominator, or least common multiple of 2 and 3 is going to be 6. So we're going to change both fractions to sixth. 6 is the third multiple of 2, so we multiplied 2 times 3 to get 6. So we have to multiply the top by 3. 9 times 3 is 27. So 9 halves is equal to 27 sixths. Okay, remember what you do to the bottom, you have to do to the top. Now 4/3 change to 6. 6 is the second multiple of 3, so we multiplied 3 times 2. So we have to multiply the top times 2. 4 times 2 is 8. So now we can subtract with a common denominator, our least common multiple. 27 sixths minus 8 sixths is 19 sixths. Now if we change that back to a mixed number, we divide 19 by 6. 19 divided by 6 is 3. And there is 1 remaining because 6 times 3 is 18. 1 remaining, so 3 1/6. Now the next way we're going to do this is we are going to just subtract our whole numbers and our fractions. So we're going to rewrite 4 1/2 in sixths because that's our common denominator. So 4 1/2, 2 times 3 was 6. So 1 times 3 is 3. So 4 1/2 is equal to 4 3/6. Subtract 1. Now we have to change 1/3 to 6. 3 times 2 was 6, so 1 times 2 is 2. So 1 1/3 is equal to 1 2/6. Now we can just subtract 4 minus 1 is 3. 3/6 minus 2/6 is 1/6. And you see you get the same answer. So whichever way you like to do it is fine. The next problem we're going to look at, you're going to regroup your fractions. Again, we can do it two ways. We can change our mixed number to an improper fraction. 3 times 2 is 6, plus 1 is 7. 7/3 minus 1 times 2 is 2, plus 1 is 3. 1 1/2 is 3 halves. Now, we have to find a common denominator, which would be 6 again, our least common multiple. 3 times 2 is 6, so 7 times 2 is 14. 2 times 3 is 6, so 3 times 3 is 9. So now we can subtract 14 sixths minus 9 sixths is 5 sixths. Okay, now we're going to look at regrouping here. If we leave our whole numbers and change our fractions to a common denominator, 2 1/3 is going to be equal to 2 2/6 minus 1 1/2 is 1 3/6. Now, if we subtract our whole numbers, 2 minus 1, we get 1. But when we look at our fractions, we only have 2/6 and we're trying to subtract 3/6. We can't do that. If we only have 2, we can't take 3 away. So we're going to regroup. We're going to take one of our whole and we're going to change it to sixth. Remember, 1 whole in sixth is 6/6. So instead of 2 and 2/6, we're now going to have 1, and we took one of those wholes and made it 6. So 6/6 plus 2/6 would be 8/6 minus 1 and 3/6. And now we can subtract. 1 minus 1 is 0, no whole. 8/6 minus 3/6 is 5/6. So again, we get the same answer. Either way we do it. But we had to regroup one of these whole as a fraction. And as a fraction, it would be 6/6. So we just added that to the 2/6 we had and left our 1 whole to get 1 and 8/6. Okay, now the last one we're going to do is just adding mixed numbers. Again, you can do it either way. 2 times 1 is 2, plus 1 is 3. So 1 and 1/2 is 3/2, plus 2 and 3/5. 5 times 2 is 10, plus 3 is 13/5. Now we can change to a common denominator. 2 and 5, our least common multiple, is going to be 10. So we're going to change both fractions to tenths. 2 times 5 gives us our 10. So 3 times 5, what you do to the bottom, you have to do to the top. 15/10. Plus 5 times 2 gives us our 10. So 13 times 2 is 26. 15 plus 26 is going to be 41/10. Now if we change that back to a mixed number, 41 divided by 10 is 4. And there's 1/10 remaining. You always put your remainder when you divide 41 by 10, you put your remainder over top of your denominator. Okay? Now we can add this just like it is. We have 1, and we can change our 2 fractions again to tenths. 1/2 is equal to 5/10 plus 2 whole. 3/5 as tenths. 5 times 2 is 10, so 3 times 2 is 6. That's going to equal 3 and 11/10. Now, 11/10 is an improper fraction. So we know 10/10 is 1 whole, so we can take 10/10 from 11/10 and make another whole, which would give us 4 whole, and there's 1 remaining, and we put that over top of our denominator. So 3 and 11/10 is going to equal 4 and 1/10, and you can see we get the same answer.